All right, welcome everyone online and in person here tonight. It is Monday, January 8th at 7 p.m. At this point in time, I'll call the Select Board meeting to order. We have one, possibly two joining us later, well, one now remotely. So we'll do a roll call for attendance. We'll start with folks in the room here. Bill?
Bill Wilson here.
Sean Farrell here, and then we have Bill Olson online. Just want to say you're here, Bill.
Yeah, Bill Olson here.
Perfect. All right. To kick it off, we've got a handful of board and committee openings. One opening for the Community Preservation Committee, two openings on the Conservation Commission, two associate openings on the Council on Aging, one associate opening on the Finance and Advisory Committee, two openings for 3-year terms and two openings for a 2-year term for the Historic District Commission. One of those 2-year terms has to be a resident of the Historic District, and the other one must be a resident realtor who lives in Hamilton. One opening on the Human Rights Commission, one associate opening on the Planning Board, and last but not least, one associate opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals. At this point, we have 3 minutes on topics not already in the agenda for public comment. If you are online tonight and wish to comment here or later on, just raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you. And if you're here, just come to the podium, state your name, address, and state your business. All right, seeing no public comment, we'll move on to our agenda, which is approved minutes of the November 20th, 2023 Select Board meeting. I would add approved minutes of the November 7th, 2022 Select Board meeting. If somebody wanted to combine a motion to accept those, that would be sweet.
I move that we combined minute approval for November 20th and November 7th.
Second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye. We'll do a roll call, I guess. I shouldn't say aye, we'll say aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Bill Olson, aye.
Okay, great. We have approved a sign request from the middle school drama for the sign frame at the COA. I think it's in our packets here. If anybody wants to make a motion to accept that, we can discuss it if there's any discussion.
I move that we approve the sign request for the middle school drama for the sign frame at the COA.
Second that.
Okay, the banner is 3 by 5. It'll fit in the frame. Performances end January 13th. Banner will be moved at 1 p.m. on Saturday. Any other discussion? If not, I'll do a roll call vote.
No, I'm good with it.
I'm good.
Bill Wilson?
Bill Wilson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Bill Olson, aye.
All right, moving right along. Accept a donation of $1,000 from Allsop Design to assist with purchase of PPE for the fire department. So this is a donation, and we're hoping to accept it so we can pay for some PPE. Anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we accept a donation for $1,000 from the Allsop Design Group to assist with purchase of PPE for the fire department.
I second that.
All right, any discussion from anybody?
Was that a predetermined amount that
No.
suffices, or?
No, it was a surprise donation from a local resident and business owner, and the chief has things that he can put it to good use with, so it's, but we can't accept it, we can't spend it until you accept it.
And they're not involved in any business with the town at the moment? No?
No.
I think it's great. I appreciate the donation.
Yeah. All right, all those in favor will say aye. We'll start with Bill Wilson.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye, and Bill Olson.
Bill Olson, aye.
All right, thank you very much, Allsop Design.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along, we have a request by the Hamilton Human Rights Commission to support the Change the Seal campaign presented by our Human Rights Commission Chair, Mr. Jamie Knudsen.
All right. Thank you, and I'm really here mostly to introduce David Detmold to do the presentation, but I'll say 3 or so introductory remarks. So the Human Rights Commission voted unanimously to ask the Select Board to support this. And David hopefully will speak a little bit about exactly what you're supporting, but whether it's the Select Board making a statement in favor or ultimately supporting something at town meeting for the town to vote to approve this. That's what the Human Rights Commission unanimously voted to ask you to do. And so the state flag and seal, which David will spend the time on, but it seems to me, in particularly related to kind of the militaristic and genocidal nature of it, seems to be like, something that is due to change, all right? And so the legislature authorized a special commission to investigate it, which they did over the course of, 2 to 3 years, I think. Their final report was recently issued. The special commission is recommending that the flag and the seal be replaced, but there hasn't been a recommendation as to exactly what that would be. There are some discussions about it. But the special commission is not the legislature itself, right? So the legislature is ultimately going to have to decide. So the group of indigenous peoples and others supporting this cause are still looking for communities to voice their support. And I believe 79 or so other communities in Massachusetts have voiced their support officially. There's a couple who didn't, but just a couple. And then there's probably a bunch of others that haven't said anything in particular. And I don't know, I know you've got some materials there in front of you. You've got David's presentation. If you need to look at more, right, so where all this is housed, at least as far as like the information about it, I shouldn't say all the information, but the grassroots effort to do it is at changethemassflag.org, I think. It's org. So there's a lot more information there that you can find out. And with, so I would, anyway. So with that, I will hand it over to David, and I know Nancy is on here as well. And I'm sure she'll speak up if she feels like she needs to or want to. Nancy, do you need to? Well, I don't call on people. You call on people.
Nicely
So,
done.
if you have any questions for me, I'll stand back up there and answer, but I think we should probably hear David.
Yeah, let's listen to David. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Whenever you're ready, David.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and I thank you so much for taking a few minutes in your busy agenda tonight at the turn of the year to consider this request from the Human Rights Commission. And you would be in good company with 79, that is the correct total, other cities and towns across the Commonwealth, from the tip of Cape Cod right over to the border in New York, who have already taken this matter up since 2018. Now 5 years we've been bringing this to town meetings and city councils. We've lost a couple of those votes, as Jamie mentioned. 7 towns have voted to keep the flag and seal just the way it is, with a white hand holding a colonial sword above the head of an indigenous person and a Latin motto that is commonly translated, she seeks a quiet peace under the sword, but peace with liberty. Ipswich, for example, your neighboring town, in May of last year voted 353 to 121 to ask their legislators and the chairs of the Joint Committee on State Administration to make this a top priority and to get it done. And Ipswich is not your only neighboring community that has voted. Merrimack, Amesbury, Newburyport, West Newbury, and Newbury all took it up last spring, and they all passed it. The reason that we are bringing this through the town meeting process and the select board's support for that would be so welcome, is that the legislature has not really moved quickly on this. This has been in front of the legislature now, this matter, for 40 years. And that is not an exaggeration. That's exactly how long it's been. And I think towns and cities have gotten frustrated over that period of time. Every town is required to fly the flag and to teach it to their grade school students in 3rd grade as part of the core curriculum. And it's a tough symbol to be teaching young children. What do they see when they see our flag and seal other than a sword held over the head of an Indigenous person? Tough thing for a 3rd grade teacher to explain to their children. Indigenous leaders have been calling for this to be changed for 50 years and more, and so I think it's part of the historic process of change. Massachusetts has changed its flag and seal on a number of occasions since it was first introduced. By the Puritans, actually, in 1629, when we saw an Indigenous figure very similar to what we're looking at today. Only at that time, there was a speech balloon coming out of the Indigenous person's mouth saying, "Come over and help us." That phrase has been taken away, but it really shows the origins of this as a symbol of white supremacy, if you don't mind my saying so, and putting it in those terms. Come over and help us. Really, the history of the relations between the original people of this continent, of whom, we still count more than 90,000 on our census rolls today in Massachusetts. The history of relations between the colonists, their descendants, and Indigenous people of Massachusetts have been fraught with violence, and I don't think genocide is too strong a term. And this is due for a change. Many states across the country have been examining their seals and flags. You may have read news reports that Minnesota has just tackled a very similar problem in their state symbol. And Mississippi, just 3 years ago, finally, the last state in the South that had a state flag of the Confederacy, the Confederate Stars and Bars, after the murder of George Floyd in 2020, they finally changed their symbol to a beautiful magnolia flag after consulting with Native people in Mississippi. Now, here in Massachusetts, it's taken us 40 years to even get to this stage where we've appointed a special commission. We've invited the leaders of all the tribal nations in of many of the tribal nations in the Commonwealth, including the chair people of the 2 federally recognized tribes, the Akinnawampanoag and the Mashpee Wampanoag. Also, the Nipmuc had a representative on the special commission, and so did the Massachusetts tribe. And the Indigenous leaders and the legislators that they worked with on the special commission, and the historians and representatives of art organizations and tourism organizations were unanimous, in May of 2022, that this symbol is harmful, causing harm today, and needs to be totally revised. What we would change it to is an ongoing discussion, and yet what we're really seeking through this conversation with the select board tonight is the chance for the citizens of Hamilton to weigh in on this, because it is a conversation that affects every city and town across the Commonwealth, including Hamilton. So with all humility and respect, I would support the Human Rights Committee in the request that the select board might allow this to be placed in front of the town meeting this coming spring, so that this conversation can come to the citizens of Hamilton, and hopefully we'll have a positive vote there. And I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you very much for giving us all that information. It's good insight.
Yep.
Bill, any comments or questions?
I just want to understand, I mean, there was something that was in the State House for years and just stalled and didn't go anywhere, so now we have to restart the process. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it was first introduced in 1985 by Representative Byron Rushing, who has stayed with this for 40 years, and he's still totally in support, although he's left his position as a legislator. He rose to be majority whip, and he still couldn't get it through the legislature to establish a special commission. At that point, that's what they were seeking. And it was introduced in 1985 with the support of the director of the Massachusetts Commission on Indian Affairs. And it came back in front of the legislature for 17 consecutive sessions, never got out of committee until cities and towns began to weigh in. And we had about 32 cities and towns saying, please make this a priority, please change this. This is so offensive. When they finally, it was actually on January 6, 2021, the same day as the riot in Washington, D.C., that the legislature finally established the special commission. And they just, it took them several years of study. There was some holdouts on the 19-member commission who felt that they needed convincing. Massachusetts loves its history and won't change things easily unless they're really convinced. But they came to a unanimous opinion, including the Secretary of State's designee and the general who was the military historian for the Massachusetts National Guard, who were on that commission. And they all agreed that this is an offensive symbol that needs to be changed. And yet the legislature, we are still flying that flag today. We have a new governor who ran on issues of equity and inclusion. This should be a priority of hers. She needs to hear from, I think, as many cities and towns across the Commonwealth that they want to get this done. This has been a very, very long time coming.
Yeah, in my quick little bit of research, kind of during when you were talking before the meeting, it seems like the commission came to the same conclusion the last two times, which was that we need to update and change it, but they didn't have a recommendation for what to change it to, and I think that's probably one of the sticking points probably, but if we can help support it, maybe we can light a fire under them to start thinking about what to change it to so it's more inclusive.
Exactly so. And finally, look at what Mississippi finally did, and they resisted this for 20 years, but when it came to the point in 2020, the Republican governor of Mississippi said to the legislature, okay, enough, you have 3 months to come up with a new flag and seal, and then I'm taking the old one down. And they did. 3 months, given a deadline, they came up with a beautiful symbol. So it's true that the commission has not come to consensus as to what a new seal should look like. That's a healthy discussion that needs to continue. And they have set forth, a process which they are recommending that we follow, where the Secretary of State, who is the guardian of the flag and seal, or it's within his purview, would chair a small advisory group with an indigenous co-leader to hire a designer, come to agreement, and bring to the legislature a finished product. And the more backing we can get for that, I think from concerned citizens, but also from town meetings and cities and towns who can look at this and say, we support changing this. This is not something we should continue to fly on it's probably right there in your town, your select board meeting room. It has to be in every town hall. And as a symbol of our Commonwealth, I think we could do so much better.
So just to interject, I guess let's talk kind of next steps here. So I'm not going to speak for the board, but I'm going to kind of assume that we think this might be something we want to move forward. Is the goal for tonight for us to discuss bringing it as a warrant article in town meeting, and then we work on the structure of it based on whatever recommendation the group has with the, whatever entity is kind of helping spearhead this at the state. Is that a correct assumption?
I think you've summarized it pretty well. The way it's often gone is that citizen groups or human rights committees bring 10 signatures to the board and say, we would like to place this on the town meeting with the support of our citizens. But the select board can do that themselves if they wish to, without the gathering of signatures. But I'm sure.
Yeah, the select
unless
board
you're-
could sponsor it, or the Human Rights Commission could probably sponsor it, I would imagine, or
Yeah.
jointly sponsor it, could we?
I mean, I think, if I could interject, I think the Human Rights Commission has brought it to you because they report to you, and
Yeah.
they basically said, this is something that we think the town should look at. So I don't think that they could, unless you allowed them to, you could put
Right,
it on the
because
warrant
they're- yeah.
with them as a sponsor, but I think it probably makes sense for the select
Yeah,
board to
no, that
decide
makes
to
sense.
put it on
Based on the kind of
based on
hierarchy of.
based on the
how it works.
recommendation of the Human Rights Commission.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, I think we can continue to talk about it, but I think it's a great introduction.
Yeah.
I think I'm fine with it. I think we just gotta go through we're just voting to write a letter, basically, right? And send it to,
Yeah, and that's
the
what it
state.
kind of seems like. I mean, and I think
Yeah.
the town meeting vote will help give it more weight that,
Yeah.
it's passed at a town meeting instead of just we typically write a lot of select board recommendations to the state for different things or with different bills at the House and whatnot, but, I think the goal here is that give it more weight, and I guess.
have we talked to our representatives about the best way, now that we have this information, the best way to move forward? Maybe they have some recommendations.
Well, that's a good comment, Bill. I have a meeting tomorrow morning with Kristen Kasner, so I can bring it up then, too.
And Senator Tarr had a seat on the special commission, which he delegated to a young college student. He never came to one meeting, but he happened to be at the Ipswich town meeting when they voted. So I know he's heard from many of his cities and towns, and it would be great if Hamilton would second that motion, and join that growing chorus, because his vote would be very influential in the final analysis on this.
Yeah, and I can reach out to Bruce, too. Thoughts, Bill?
I was just wondering, is the special commission still together? Are they doing education? Are they doing any type of grassroots efforts or they made a recommendation and have kind of disbanded?
So they had a deadline of November 15th of last year.
Yep.
And they basically came to the conclusion that they didn't have time to reach consensus on what the new image should be. What they recommended was that an advisory, as I mentioned, as an advisory group be formed under the guidance of the Secretary of the Commonwealth with an Indigenous co-chair. And they outlined who the rest of the members of that little advisory group would be. And they also recommended an educational program, K through 12 and for adults throughout the Commonwealth, to learn the history of the flag and seal and the movement to change it, and to discuss the harm that it has been causing. So those are their final recommendations. They did sponsor a statewide survey, and more than 10,000 people responded. So they gathered information, good baseline information about what the citizens of the Commonwealth would like to see in a new flag and seal, and for a new state motto, which, by the way, the top pick for the wording of the motto was the word peace, not as we're living with today, peace under the sword, but just peace. So that's kind of
I thought you were going to say it was an image of Taylor Swift or something like that. but-
it's kind of, well, some people have said the state seal should be one of the seals that has been found in Boston Harbor, for example.
Or the one over in Beverly by the
Yeah, right, by the.
Cummings Center
yeah.
there? No, I
Just
think-
about
to
anything,
your
just
point-
about anything would be preferable, I think, to what we're looking at today.
Yeah, I just think it needs more push and communication and education. That's why I'm surprised it just kind of stopped last November. I think to your point, Sean, it was left without a solution. If there was a group that was brought together to make a recommendation, and then here's the issue, here's the solution, you could tend to get more momentum, but I don't, I would encourage us to, getting in front of town meeting and let's get the voice of the people here.
We are opening the warrant tonight, so you can always,
Yeah, timely,
always add it to the list. It's amazing how that works out.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't have a full board here, but, I don't want to speak for the other two members, and I don't know if the three of us that are here want to wait, but I don't know if we need to. I mean, we can always put it on the warrant when we open it as a placeholder, and then have a larger discussion, and maybe even after I talk to Senator Tarr and Representative Kasner a little bit, to see kind of if there's any motion on the Hill to do anything with it, and we can kind of revisit it. But I don't see us taking it off the warrant if we've got support of the board, for sure.
I agreed. I mean, I think we should talk to our reps, find out the best thing to do, but I have no problem putting something on the warrant once we figure out what that is.
All right, so do we need to make any motion at the moment, do you think?
I
I
think
think
we
we get a
just.
straw vote that we're all for it, and I think we just need to talk as a larger group to figure out what the next steps are.
See what our agenda says. Just as a request.
Yeah, I don't think it was brought up as a motion. I thought it was just educational to start. But I definitely am in favor of moving forward and having more discussions.
So
Like I said, you do open the warrant tonight, you're gonna look at a
Yeah.
bunch of draft,
Yeah.
items that are on there for a list, you can always add this to list and
Yeah.
take it off later.
Yeah,
You
so
don't
I-
close the warrant until, for another month.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I think I'll suggest that. So we won't make a motion per se right now to support it or accept it for the Springtown meeting, but when we open the warrant here in a couple of items, we'll add it as a placeholder, which will most likely stay on the warrant, if that's satisfactory to the Human Rights Commission. We can also have you back too, if you hear anything more about it or want to educate our other two select persons. Do you have more information that you can send us, or I went to the website that changed the seal and stuff. Is there anything else that we should be looking at in the meantime to?
When we say 79 cities and towns have voted in favor, that's always been at town meeting or city council. So this is the legislative branch of each of these communities. And almost all of them have followed pretty much the same wording, which the Human Rights Committee has in their hands, and which I think is attached as an attachment to the agenda tonight. So a sample language for a non-binding resolution for the town meeting has been provided to you, and it would basically request your town clerk, were it to pass, to send it to Senator Tarr and Kristen Kastner, as well as the co-chairs of the Joint Committee on State Administration. So you've got sample wording. It can be changed to suit the needs of the Human Rights Committee or the board, but you've got it in front of you.
All right, so I think what we'll do is we'll most likely put it on as a placeholder on our upcoming agenda item here. But then I would also say, don't have the language, so Jamie, if you could
I don't either.
send me it, and if you haven't already sent Joe, and Joe, you could send it around.
Yeah, I don't think I have, I saw it in the meeting, but I don't think I have it, so if you could send it to me, that'd be great.
Okay, so then we'll get the language, and then we'll probably have you guys come back in as we get a little closer with the warrant, and you can come to the hearing and talk about it. We make sure all the language all,
Once it lands on the list of items, you'll probably hear from the FinCom too. They vet every item on the warrant, so they'll probably talk to you.
sound good, gentlemen?
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so
for
much.
the presentation.
You can get your basketball game now, Jamie.
I think he was gonna make it. Thank you.
All right,
Just a question for
Yeah.
my clarification, being a first year here. Is there any type of protocol for the board where you can't vote on the first time, or am I confusing it with school committee?
yes, no.
Okay,
So when we have a new policy or something like that, we typically do a first reading and then we
Okay.
do the next time. But something like this is kind of in the gray area, so we don't have a language thing in front of us, so that's why I kind of wanted to.
And you also have the ability, so the other side of that is, something like this you could vote on tonight,
okay,
but if another member asked to table it, you'd have to table it,
okay.
Yeah.
so.
So
Yeah, most-
policies are multiple readings, but
Yeah.
there's a gray area, not a gray area, but just, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, up next, we have approved mid-year employee step increase for employee in Public Works. Presentation by our town manager, Joe D. Discuss and vote.
I probably shouldn't have said presentation by, but, you know, I'm presenting to you some information,
Yes.
which you largely, I don't have a slideshow or anything. You had in your packets the information on this, essentially, and I don't want to get into naming employees, it's public record, but I don't really feel like putting anybody in the spot. We have 2 employees in the Public Works Union. They were hired around the same time a couple of years ago. Recently, one of them was promoted, and as he got promoted, as consistent with the town's policy, he was promoted to his new grade and back a step, which is only 1 grade up, so he went up a grade and back a step. That's fine. He got his raise when he got promoted. Another part of the town policy also calls for setting the new date for the next step increase at the date of the promotion. So now, we come forward a few months, and the other employee, who was hired around the same time, but did not get a promotion, is gonna get his next step increase, and it's actually gonna pay him more than the person who just got promoted. This doesn't come up very often. It's a kind of a vagary in our system, and, you know, quite frankly, we've had some conversations internally about the way we do step increases anyway, having some discussions with the unions about it, and I'm likely gonna look to come to you all to make a change. The unions may sign off on a change even before we get there. It creates a lot of work to have people paid on their anniversary dates, and then to quote-unquote change the anniversary date when you get a promotion makes it even more confusing. Several cities and towns around us nowadays are switching to a position where they pay COLAs on July 1st, and all step increases for all employees get paid on January 1st. It simplifies the process, it makes it more orderly and less likely that something like this can happen. It does cost a little bit more money when you do it that way, but it's really in the margins when you think about it. The problem would be making that kind of change in the first year, because people right now are used to getting paid that way. But that's something that still has to be worked out with the unions and everything else. I don't have a recommendation on that. But I do have a request that, in order to go outside of the personnel policies and outside the contract in this, I felt it was important to bring it to the select board and ask you to authorize me to adjust the salary of the person who just got promoted to the next step up, so that the promotion will actually be a promotion, not just more responsibility.
I'm just catching up on reading this, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
So Joe, what we did met all the requirements of, it's just a weird timing, is that what you're saying? So
Yeah.
everything we did met all the requirements of the union, the agreements,
Yep.
everything but just the timing of it,
Yeah,
because there's 2
it's-
employees started at the same time, makes it an awkward situation.
Yeah, it's just this weird situation where their dates slide with promotions and steps, and then keeping track of them, and then you have a situation like this that comes up, not often, but comes up probably enough, but we haven't had it only happen maybe once or so.
Are we
Essentially,
setting any precedent by doing this, that we're,
I don't think, we don't, Tim and I don't foresee, and I actually look across the other units, I don't think we have any other situation right now where we have 2 people that were hired in the same week, and one of them's got a promotion or is going to get a promotion. This would fix the current problem in front of us by agreeing to adjust that by 1 step increase for the employee that was promoted. And as I said, I'm working on trying to come up with a solution that will solve the system, and I'll bring that obviously back to you all later on.
Yeah, when Joe first brought this up to me before, as we were kind of putting it on the agenda, I had suggested and asked him about if we could, I think changing the anniversary date is difficult for staff and employees to keep up with as you get promoted through all the steps and stuff like that. So I suggest either 1 anniversary date of their hire date, or as Joe suggested there, it was a July 1st, January 1st type of a situation with step increases and et cetera, just to streamline it and make it simple so everyone can understand it, and it's not a huge matrix you gotta figure out.
It'll also make it easier for us on doing the workforce sheets and figuring out what the impact of raises and adjustments will be, because we know it's, this impact is for a whole year, this impact is only for 6 months.
Right.
We can do that and figure out exactly the dollar amount that raises will have on the budget, so it makes it easier to forecast. And we haven't done a bad job of it in the past. I'm not saying this is, a do or die thing, but I think that, we have a small accounting team, they have to make all these adjustments on their own.
Yeah.
We have one employee basically is chasing around every department head every month saying, oh, you've got these anniversary dates coming up, make sure you make the correction in the payroll on this day. It'd be easier to just adjust all those on a set date.
And would you get everyone on a set date by prorating the step, or?
To-
And then
to-
it's-
To make the change, to make the permanent change long-term, yes,
Yeah.
that's one of the things.
You'd
we're
have to
working on.
give a little bit in the beginning, right?
At the
To
beginning, in
level
the
it.
first time, but.
Let me just ask one question.
but then it
So
would
the
save
two
us-
employees,
Yep.
one got promoted, one didn't. If the one hadn't got promoted, would they be getting the same step and
Yeah.
it wouldn't be,
Yep.
have been an issue?
Yep,
Okay, so he actually got penalized because he got promoted?
Yeah,
Right.
Is what
exactly.
you're telling me?
exactly.
That's why we brought it forward.
And the budgetary, it's not an issue in the budget, it's just
Right,
a process thing.
all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
It's not that the.
I'm fine with it. Understand
how-
that,
how
I'm fine with
the promo
it. If it's just the way that the timing was, he got penalized, I don't think that's fair. Especially if he's doing a good job, so, or he or she's doing a good job, so.
Right.
He's doing great.
Yep.
Bill Wilson, you were
I
going to
just was gonna say, it's not a factor of the promo amounts aren't enough, right? The promotional salary increases, it's the timing of the step, whereas,
So for whatever reason, the town in the past, and I know what, we try to be really frugal with taxpayer money, so when we agreed, when the town set the policy on promotions, they said, okay, well, you get promoted, you're gonna go up to the next grade, right? If you were promoted up more than one grade, it wouldn't be a difference, but the level of difference between one grade to the next grade is so small that he moved up, but he moved back a step. So say he was grade 3, step 4, he went up to grade 4, step 3. And that difference is so small that when the other guy that's still at grade 3 goes from 4 to 5, that's bigger. Now, that's all, for example. So,
Yep.
so our point is that it doesn't happen very often, but there are other problems with the current way that we record step increases and promotions and things like that. So we do want to take a longer-term look at the whole system, but for now, for these two employees, particularly for the employee who was promoted, we think it's fair to have him make his next step now. They've both been here for several years, so they're not a problem. They're both very good employees.
How did we not, I mean, I guess, we did a whole wage and classification study and changed our steps, et cetera. When was that?
how many steps are there in a grade? 8? So is it, because they're right in the middle, 3, 4, whatever they're at?
I
or is
mean,
it-
essentially what's happening is you wind up having even though there's a grade difference, there's a 2-step difference between the two people. So, the employee that didn't move up a grade is
Yeah.
at 4.4, and now he's moving up to 4.5.
Yeah.
The difference between 4.5 and 3.3, or whatever,
Yeah.
the difference is greater than the difference between the raises.
Sorry, Sean, you were on a good thought, I think.
about
on-
that.
on
No, that's
that.
okay.
Because you're
I'm
trying to
just-
like mitigate, is there a flaw in the process? I know you said
Right, I
You're
just
gonna
want-
look at it, but-
before the wage and classification table, it was, in the step scale, it was kind of a mess. We really did a lot of work to try and figure it out. It's just kind of a bummer that this is a byproduct of our new step and wage increase.
And look, there may not be any perfect system, and, in terms of solving everything that everybody wants. Now, obviously, when you put together wage grids and such, what you're trying to do is, provide a good range of where people will be when they move this amount of time, blah, blah.
But, yeah, I think that the fix to this is, kind of our suggestion there on the anniversary dates being a little more locked, and then you'll know what's kind of coming.
Anniversary dates are anniversary dates. To me, they should just be the date you got hired. My anniversary date
Right,
was.
it shouldn't be based on promotion or
September
whatever.
6th, 2018. They shouldn't have to roll with promotions or additions of
Yeah.
duties and such, so.
Well, I guess let's go back to the baseline here for our agenda. Our agenda is asking to approve this.
Approve a mid-year step increase, 1 step. So the employee is at his grade, he will move up 1 step this month, so that he will still maintain, some kind of a pay
That hierarchy,
differential
yeah.
over
His
the
promotion.
person that hasn't been promoted.
All right, so let's start there. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve that? And then we can discuss it.
Yeah, I
I'll
can-
move.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, I was gonna read
And
it.
second by Bill Wilson. I
Yeah,
assume.
second.
All right, so any further discussion on the specific instance with the employee with the step increase mid-year?
I just, like, Mr. Olson was right out of the gate when he talked about how do you not set a precedence? I mean, I don't know that it would come into play, but it's always important. I don't know if we need to add on to it while you look at a longer term.
Yeah, well, I guess I would say to both of your comments that maybe at the end of our vote here, we have a discussion and we put that on a new business to update our policy for that wage and
Okay.
compensation table. And then have Joe and maybe even someone from FinCom look at how that affects our overall numbers for actuals and stuff like, et cetera, as the year goes by, so we can make sure that we budget accordingly for
So this
those.
is now on the radar of the unions, so the unions are gonna be asking about it anyway. So the question is, and when I'm in negotiations, when I'm talking to
Sure.
them, I can try to come up with creative ways to solve the situation for them, that then we could bring back to you and say, we're solving it this way for the unions. Can we roll that out for all the non-union personnel? And then
Right,
you
and-
have a new now you have a new policy.
Right, and I think everyone would see it as a good thing.
Yeah.
All right, so any other discussion about our item that's been moved and seconded? All right, all those in favor of approving a mid-year employee step increase for employee in public works, will say aye with a roll call. Bill Wilson.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye, and Bill Olson.
Bill Olson, aye.
All right, and then I would
Thank you, everybody.
say if everybody's all right with it, new business, looking at our wage and compensation table / policy for,
Just a longer term solve.
yeah, longer term solve. All right, up next we have review and approve 2024 town meeting calendar, discuss and vote.
So you had it in your
It's in the packet here.
packets. Let me see if I can bring up. Essentially, we do this every year at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the budget season, and I just wanted to update it and quite frankly, get it all onto one page. We have a lot of stuff there. Okay. I'm gonna try and get it up here for the folks like Mr.
Just trying to turn it.
Rath are at home. Are you guys seeing? Yeah, okay, so what you have in front of you now is just a new, an updated timetable for, the events leading up to town meeting, that is from our date through, town meeting. And if I can move this.
And these are mostly associated with meeting dates for different,
Yeah, mostly it's associated with meeting dates for the different boards and committees. And a little, but it does call out when you're gonna open the warrant, when you're gonna close the warrant, when the town clerk will post the warrant, for town meeting voters. We used to have in this schedule the date that would include, when we would send it to printer. We're no longer doing that, but it would
Right.
say when we will send the mailer home to residents, so that they can download the warrant and become aware of the items. So that's, I just figured that was a good thing to have as part of the discussion tonight when you open the warrant, was these are the dates coming up. You're gonna open the warrant this evening on the 8th. I believe you closed the warrant, I'm gonna look here, it's
Where is it
on
here?
2/26, February 26th. In between, we call out, you have the meetings, but you also call out some of the things that happen. The school committee's gonna meet on the 18th and have their public hearing on their school budget. That's just so people know that's gonna be happening. It's part of our process. Community Preservation Committee, the deadline to submit a grant application to CPC is February 1st, and then the CPC meets on February 8th to consider the eligibility of those grant applications. So all those things are in here. We can put this on the website. Anybody that wants to interact with our town meeting calendar can do so.
What about, do we call out like citizens petitions, deadlines, or anything like that?
Citizens petition deadline is the day of the closing of the warrant. We get that asked all the time, so it has to be into the town clerk's office by close of business on the day that the warrant's due to be closed.
Should we
So-
flag that on there somewhere, or is it and I'm missing it?
It's 2/26, so February 26th.
Yep, no, I see that. It doesn't mention
I
anything about a
can
citizens
add that, I
committee.
can
Yeah.
add that there if you like.
I would say, I'm fine with adding that. I would even add all warrant articles, including citizens petitions, have to be in, because we have
Yeah.
planning board and other boards that often put in a petition for a warrant article, so getting all the language and everything in by the time we get there would be good. Oftentimes we're still fiddling with language, though, before it closes a little bit, but it would be nice to be ahead of it.
I did check all the meeting dates before we reposted them here and sent an email to Mr. McGrath, who's online, and I double checked with the planning department and everybody else. So all the boards that are recognized here, these are their planned scheduled meetings between now and
Okay.
April 6th. So they can change, but this is what we knew as of last week.
All right, so I would, we've got discuss and vote, so I think it looks fine besides adding the information that we just talked about. So if anybody wants to make a motion to accept it as in, unless we need to change it.
No, I move that we approve the 2024 town meeting calendar.
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Olson. All those in favor, we'll start with Bill Wilson.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Bill Olson, aye.
Awesome.
Okay.
Um,
And then right behind that in the list, you have, right behind that in the warrant, you have the draft list of warrant articles.
All right, so if one of you two gentlemen want to make a motion to open the 2024 annual town meeting warrant, we'll go ahead and do so.
I move that we open the 2024 annual town meeting.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Bill Wilson?
Bill Wilson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Bill Olson, aye.
All right, our warrant is officially open. And then we have a handful of articles here.
So most of these are traditional articles, are just the ones that we kind of have every year. Election of officers, just a regular article in the warrant. Consent agenda, budgets, which we'll be presenting to joint committee of the FinCom and the Select Board on Monday, January 22nd. That will include compensation and classification table, community preservation, operating budget, and grant requests, so that will be likely at least 2 different articles. FY capital plan, stabilization fund, the capital stabilization fund, OPEB, Hamilton Development Corporation, Winthrop School / downtown zoning plan. So this incorporates some of what we've been talking about, needing to understand what, if the Winthrop Schools site becomes available at some point, what do we want the zoning to be? We are recognizing that the state has 3A, MBTA 3A zoning requirement that we're supposed to be trying to take up and consider. We know the planning board is looking into that. So this is just a placeholder to have an article or articles addressing those things. Adopt mass, there's a section of law, Mass General Law, Chapter 32, Section 42B, is a section of law that the state would, the town would have to adopt. For instance, it affects, basically, for us, for our purposes, it would affect part-time or temporary, or specifically for us, it's gonna be call firefighters. So it allows us to allow them to buy back time when they retire. Not very many, the state changed the law a few years ago and made a requirement that cities and towns had to adopt this section. The only town that we know of right now that recently did it was Raleigh. So the fire chief brought it forward. We have potentially 2 employees that might affect them when it comes time for them to retire down the road. If we don't adopt it, they can't buy back that time. Essex County wouldn't even be allowed to consider it. So the question is, do we want to put it on the warrant and see if town meeting wants to support that? As I said, Raleigh did recently do that.
There's no skin off our back if they buy it back, right?
Right. Well, it will change, I mean, it does
Change
affect you a little bit.
their
Changes
pension a little bit,
It
right?
changes their pension and therefore
Just a
what we're
little bit
responsible
higher,
for our
longer
share.
rate, yeah.
But it could get them to something close to a livable
But it makes
pension.
their year high earnings in
Yeah.
the later years, okay.
And it really, it doesn't affect all call firefighters, because call firefighters aren't part of the retirement system. But
Right.
if you put in a number of years in call fire system, then become a full-time firefighter in Hamilton. you know,
Right, then
And
you're-
then that can help you get to something like a livable retirement.
That seems fair to me, so.
And then, right now, I just put zoning articles / PHOD, the Browns Hill Overlay District, right now, I think is the only overlay, is the only zoning article we are aware of, but the planning board has some time if they have anything else they want to work on between now and April. And that's just the start, and then you could, like, if you wanted to add change the seal resolution to the.
In the Winthrop School downtown zoning plan, that's our form-based /3A /
Yeah,
et
so,
cetera.
I don't
Overlay.
think Bill Olson and Bill Wilson have been aware of this, but Sean and I have talked a little bit. I've talked with the planning board, I've talked with the HDC. We have a lot of people interested in what we do with that if the Winthrop ever becomes available, what do we do with it? I think there's a lot of people that want to plan for that contingency down the road, just in case. And I've had requests to put money into putting it as part of the downtown. I've had requests to have somebody look at doing form-based code down there. I thought that one of the things that we could potentially recommend here is to have an article that would put a sum of money into planning for the Winthrop Middle School site in a coherent, cohesive way, to have it tie into the existing neighborhood, to tie into the to its neighboring business district, accommodate the 3A requirements that have been put upon us in a way that would potentially use a form-based code approach, not just to the Winthrop School site, but for a form-based code approach for zoning for the entire downtown district. So if we did that, we could wind up on the outside of this project with the goal would be to wind up on the outside of this project with a new zoning district that would be organized along form-based zoning principles for the entire downtown, inclusive of the Winthrop Middle School, that would satisfy the tenets of the 3A zoning as well. So you-
Which is what's the requirement to be able, I thought we just needed an overlay district by the end of the year.
No, we have, so the town, in order for the town to stay eligible for certain grants and other state funding sources, we're supposed to vote to accept the 3A zoning by the end of December this year. But
It's not so much required, it's, you just lose,
You-
you lose a lot of state
you
funding.
lose a lot of state funding.
Can we go over what state funding have we realized from, we're not talking transportation monies or one,
Well, like
chapter
the
9
grant that we just applied for with the
that we didn't
HTC.
get.
That's one
But
that
you won't even
might
be
have
eligible to
affected.
apply in the future.
Right, so
The
do we have a, do we,
state,
yeah.
the housing,
Yeah.
the Hamilton Housing Authority gets
Funding for
state
the Housing
funds.
Authority.
We would lose funding for the Housing Authority.
Yeah,
Um,
that we should kind of lay that out and educate the community on that.
So
Yeah, I think
my,
that's good.
my thought was that if we did this, we wouldn't be able to get it done in time for December, so we would miss that deadline. But if we were working on this and got it done in time for a town meeting vote in 2025,
Right.
the calendar year 2025, we'd miss that eligibility for a while, but we'd at least be able to bring forward something that we think would be more acceptable to the town and would have a better chance of being passed.
I guess my question on that would be, if we associate 3A with that site, are we basically putting that site up for it? As opposed to,
We've got a radius around the train station.
And it's in the
That's-
radius.
It's in that radius.
and what
We-
percentage?
We got
I'm
the
hearing,
radius shrunk because they miscalculated some stuff. We finally just got that back approved from
Yep.
the state or whatever.
Right.
So it's a smaller radius, but it's still a lot of land downtown in Hamilton and Wenham. So,
yeah, I was on the
don't have
Wenham
much
site
choice in
today.
that,
They've
as long
got
as
some
it's
good
in that
information
zone.
out there, and I thought I read on that only 20% of the housing needs to be within that radius. Is that accurate, or did I?
I'm not sure. I think I have to.
So anyway, I agree. I think it's a good idea to do. I just, my only fear is, my only thought would be, shouldn't that be its own topic? 3A and all that versus associating it with the school property? We're basically saying one is the other.
well, we're trying to kind of combine them, so kind of two birds with one stone. So include the 3A zoning that the state's requesting that we do, plus on top of that, our form-based or whatever it comes out as
Approach.
for our overlay, and kind of mash them together with the help of a consultant. So we would have a 3A zone that is form-based code, so it kind of, we're still having control over it a little bit, other than just the
Yeah, no, I love the
state's-
idea of the form base. I just, we keep saying 3A is part of that, which it likely would, but I just don't know that they're the same thing.
So, form-based is an approach to establishing zoning versus, you know, the traditional method. And you can do anything in a form-based zone that you would do in a regular zone. It's just what it looks like. You have a better idea, and you're telling people, this is what it will look like. You can come in and do this as long as it looks like this.
Right.
And so, we've asked the state, and we've asked Department of Housing and Livable Communities, if it would be allowable to use a form-based approach to doing a 3A zone. And they said they have no reason to think it wouldn't be acceptable.
Right.
In fact, it makes sense if that's what you want to do. So,
And form-based doesn't really change what you're putting there, it just changes the appearance of it.
Right.
So you can have
That's
whatever
why I'm
business
saying they-
under the roof that you
Yeah.
want to have, basically, within our zoning, but it's gonna be prescribed at basically a design code.
But we keep positioning it as a solution for the 3A, right? So we're putting them together. You're right, form-based is a vehicle to get whatever it is. So I guess my question would be, how many acres is the property and how many houses potentially could go there if a developer came in?
I believe that property's 14
14
acres.
acres, I think.
So do we know of 14 acres, how many of our requirement could end up there?
A lot.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Well,
A couple hundred. Depending what kind of buildings they put there, if they did just straight.
if you do a form-based approach, you're gonna wind up creating a little bit of a barrier on that, because,
Right.
because
I think he's just saying if we just went 3A
if you
zoning.
just did 3A zoning, you would be hard-pressed to control the number of units that go there, because the state wants 15 units per acre.
So
right?
that's okay.
So if you have 14 acres and you do the math, that's the number of units, as far as the state's concerned, under the traditional zoning method, we would have a hard time figuring out how that looks. If
Right.
we take a form-based code approach and say, this is what it does, we're not saying that you can't have 15 units per acre, but it's gotta fit into this. And it actually, I think would actually push developers to look at the whole of the area that's zoned that way, as opposed to just looking to get all the housing in one or two sites.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm a fan of the form base. I just, I just don't know if we should have it all together, but I hear what you said.
Hey, Joe,
Yep.
I just wanted to say something that the chat is not an opportunity to have a chat. This is a public meeting, but you're invited to
Yeah, the
speak
chat should have
and
been
not
turned
to
off.
create a separate chat. So can we just set the rules?
Yeah, I
for this discussion?
apologize, the chat should have been turned off, my fault.
Thanks, Bill. So
Yeah,
if you are online and you do
people
want to
welcome to
speak.
raise their hand and make comments, but
Exactly,
we're not
just
going
raise
to do
your
a
hand.
chat on the side and have a distracting chat. That's not part of the meeting.
Right.
So 210, you were a good guess.
What did I say, about 200, right? So
Yeah.
it's 210. That's pretty
Are you a
close.
teacher?
Yeah, it must be. All right, so,
So no, back, the route was,
obviously, much
Definitely,
more
yeah.
discussion about
yeah.
that.
But so the idea was to just have it on there, that's something we can investigate with.
Absolutely.
With you, the planning board, and the FinCom over the next 2.5 months.
And then I would say if it's all right with the two other select persons here, I would add what our discussion was earlier with the change to CO Massachusetts. I don't know, proclamation, letter, endorsement, whatever it may be. I don't know the wording until we get it in front of us.
Resolution.
Yeah, resolution. Bill or Bill, any other things that you can think of that are maybe missing on this list as of yet?
No, I think we'd gone over it previously, so I'm happy with the list.
Yeah, the only thing and I can't remember where we left it, we have a turf field that's being built, and we have a stabilization fund. Where did we leave that with paying down our portion of the,
Oh, right, so
The
we might
bond.
want to.
I don't know if we did that yet.
I don't
So
think we
I
did,
think
yeah.
we need to release funds from that stabilization fund to pay down our bond and our
Right.
raise and appropriate to the town. So releasing those funds for that, because I think we're 550 or 600 or so in that fund now, I think.
Yes.
So would apply that, Sean, against the year one
Yep.
funding that's coming from the school?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would want your group to look at it too, John, to see if it's worth paying down first year or paying it over a handful of years. I'm not sure what the best scenario would be. I'm open for any suggestions, but I mean, we have the money in that fund for this specific purpose. It seems that we should
Right.
definitely use it.
Yeah,
So, food
yeah,
for thought.
I would, we can take that up at the FinCom, as part of the, budget process, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's $1 million coming through,
Right,
in the current FY '25 budget from the school for the first year of the fields. So,
right. And
Yeah.
I don't know if Eric, how they've gone out the bond and everything yet and where they are with premiums and stuff like that.
I know they have a debt schedule, so I think they've bonded.
They've bought it already, okay. So then
Yeah, I
we'll have
think
to get
they're-
that
yeah.
from him to kind of see what the numbers are.
yeah. Yeah, the issue is, how much are we currently earning on that, that deposit? And the earnings have been pretty good over the last year and a half.
Right. Is it worth leaving it in and taking a bit
Yeah.
out at a time to
Yeah, so it's
make
a
us more
question
money?
of,
Right,
how much are we earning on it?
right.
So we could talk to the treasurer too and just say, hey, what do you think? But
What would our other source of funds be to pay that million?
Raise and appropriate.
It
Raise
was
and- so
part of
it's just debt
it was
to
part-
earnings,
Yeah,
right?
it was,
I'm
it
sure
was
debt's
part of a
gonna
debt
be higher.
exclusion, it was part of a debt exclusion act, so it would be raised outside of.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with our annual budget appropriation.
Right.
But it would be a part of your annual tax bill.
So we can
yeah,
put the
it'll be
debt
on your,
rates
it'll
to-
be on your tax. It's already in the budget.
Right,
The school's given to us, so.
right.
But it's interest on the debt, you're saying,
Yeah.
versus whatever earnings we're making on the.
Right,
the
yeah, if
stabilization
we're
fund.
making a good yield on the return, it seems you'd want to stretch it out a little bit.
Yeah, particularly because interest rates are at a, 5-year high right now. So you might want to leave it there longer, and then when the rates come down, then you pay it. So
Right, right.
we can look
Yeah.
at that. We'll talk to the treasurer about it.
Right. Yeah, we may want to stall a little bit and then pay a bunch or whatever, so let's look into that.
Yeah.
All right, any other things that we're thinking about adding?
The FY '24 capital plan, is that including schools? Is that gonna take a look at, I love what the FinCom did, last time where they looked at all the capital spend over a 5-year period and kind of the impact to tax rates.
They've been talking to the schools, and the school have provided them, or are in the midst of providing them with the information from what their capital committee is coming up with. So that stuff will be in there and part of the 5-year plan. The capital request for FY '25 will only be those items that we're
25.
recommending for FY '25.
So that's what this is, 25, not 24 then? Okay.
Did it say? For FY '25, yeah.
Yep.
But it'll be in the budget discussion on
Right.
April 6th, right.
I just like the idea, especially with the big programs that are going on, the elementary school and such, that we look at more than just 25.
Yeah, we have, yes, we can, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Bill, we've actually, put together a profile on what the school is going to cost the town over the 30-year time frame, just so voters know what's going to happen. So we'll be ready with a profile, multi-year profile of capital, but also cost of the town.
Awesome. Great.
All right, next item. Do we need to vote on that? Vote on those articles? They already, you just said review draft list articles and vote. I don't think we need to
I don't
vote, they're
think so.
on there, but we can,
Says in vote.
it says vote, so
None to vote on.
let's vote to accept the list.
As amended with the
As
two that you
amended
added.
with the,
I move we accept the list of warrant articles as amended.
Second.
all those in favor, start with Bill Wilson.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
All right. Up next, excuse me, we have review proposed communication to the Hamilton Planning Board, discuss and vote. And this was, I think, in a separate email. I don't think it's in the packet.
Yeah. Do you want me to put the letter up?
Sure.
I gotta find the letter first, hold on. Sorry about that. That's why, because it wasn't that way.
So we have two letters that we got sent earlier. One from KP Law with, was it Amy who wrote that one?
Those two letters are for information purposes. The letter you want them to look at is the one that would be from you to the chair of the planning board on behalf of the selectmen to the planning board. And that would be,
Dated today, et cetera. Greetings on behalf of the select board, et cetera.
right here. size of this a little bit.
Bill and Bill, have you
Yes,
gentlemen read this?
I have.
I have not.
Basically, it's talking about upcoming things with the planning board. See if I can. Just saying that we need to stay in communication about 3A zoning, Gordon Conwell zoning, athletic field, storm management permit, et cetera. And Browns Hill overlay district. And specifically, I call out the school district stormwater management plan and the opinion of legal counsel that the planning board's suggestion of some other, what would you call it, Joe, consultants?
Yes.
Or
Yep.
consultants for toxicology, PFAS, other things like that are out of their jurisdiction. And that they should not hold up the granting of the permit, because it's things that are more geared towards health department or out of their purvey. Anything else you would add to that?
The proposal is for Sean to send this letter on behalf of the select board to the full planning board with, and have it accompanied by the information from the town council.
When do you want to send this by?
If we okay it tonight, I'd send it out tomorrow to them, so they could have it before their meeting tomorrow night.
I haven't reviewed the specific letter, but you and I have talked about all these things separately, just one-on-one, so. See it now, and maybe we can come, I don't know if we can come back with it and vote.
I didn't catch all of
Could
that.
you say, I'm sorry, Bill, could you say that again? You kind of got lost there in the end.
Like I said, I haven't read the letter. I'd like to read it before I vote, but you and I have talked about things one-on-one, but I just haven't read the letter, so I'll get the letter. We're
Do you-
going to the next thing, I don't know if we can come back to it and vote at the end.
That, I think that's fine with me. If you think you can read it before the end, we'll move on and come back to it, or I can read it out loud to you right now. It's up to you.
We can read it out loud. I think it's better for everybody in the community here,
Sure.
challenges we have, so I think it's a good idea.
Right, so, Big says, to the planning board chair, greetings, on behalf of the select board, I'm writing to share some information and thoughts with you and the entire Hamilton Planning Board as we prepare for what looks like to be a busy 2024. As such, we think it will be beneficial to the town and to our respective bodies that we are communicating about several upcoming issues, including Gordon Conwell, the athletic fields, stormwater management permit, the MBTA 3A zoning requirement, and the future zoning for the Winthrop School site, should it become available in the future. As you may know, the Select Board opened the warrant for annual town meeting on Monday, January 8th, 2024, and we have included a placeholder article for the Browns Hill Overlay District. This article can always be removed, but as we knew you had designated Attorney Jonathan Witten to negotiate the last details of the BHOD, and since we have also tasked John with drafting the development agreement with Gordon Conwell's legal counsel, we are anticipating that a complete package will be delivered for both boards' consideration before the end of January. As for the school department's stormwater management permit, we have recently received communication from town council outlining the town's authority and responsibility relative to stormwater permits. We are enclosing a copy of that confidential communication for the planning board's benefit. Obviously, we do not feel that it is in the town's best interest to be engaged in a legal battle with the regional school district. We are also mindful that any additional expense that is assigned to the Hamilton One Regional School District for peer review, legal filings, et cetera, will become part of the overall cost of the project and thus borne by our taxpayers. 3A zoning and Winthrop School rezoning may be inextricably linked, as the Winthrop School site is one parcel that would be within the 3A zoning radius. We have asked Town Manager Joe Demelowitz, who is working with the Planning and Inspections Director Patrick Reffett, to devise a way to try and approach both of these subjects jointly. Joe will likely be reaching out to meet with you shortly about a plan to include funding in the FY 2025 budget to develop a cohesive 3A zoning article, using a form-based code approach for the entire downtown district to include the Winthrop School site. This plan will rely on professional assistance from a zoning consulting company, as well as the collaboration and cooperation of both Planning Board and the Hamilton Development Corporation. The leadership of the HCC has already signaled its support for such a plan to the town manager, and we're hopeful that by working with you, we can be sure of success with the planning board's guidance and assistance as well. Certainly, we would not expect this plan to be completed in time for the upcoming annual town meeting, and we likely would not be able to complete the project in time for special town meeting in the fall. However, it is our hope that by working across the three committees, with public outreach, we could develop a 3A compliant district by the annual town meeting in April 2025. Best regards, myself, Hamilton Select Board.
Sorry, it's just
It's all
soda,
right.
it's just
Just
soda
soda.
water. It's just soda water.
This might be.
So, Bill,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm good with the context letter.
all right. Bill Wilson, any comments on it or any changes you feel that we should make?
Has the planning board, were they unanimous in doing the toxicology study? I mean, who looks at things like that? I'm just curious, I mean, for the environmental and
I
the
don't know if
children
it
who play
was,
on the field.
I don't know
that's-
if it was unanimous. I know, my understanding is that the chair asked for a recommendation, somebody made it, and it got a majority. So it's, currently, the planning board's vote is to ask or require a toxicologist.
Which I think is
Which-
about $100,000 to $150,000.
And which may not be legally supportable.
Right.
Well, likely is not legally supportable.
Likely is not, right?
Because of the Martha's Vineyard, did I hear, or some other, is there precedent, or, I mean, who looks at that? You mentioned Board of Health, but they're not involved in the process, right?
So the stormwater permit is a stormwater permit. It's to make sure the water drains in a certain way and does, in fact, it doesn't talk at all about what's in the water.
Right, okay.
And, you know, there's also issues at play with the school district's status as a Dover, in a Dover entity. So there's certain things that are exempt from local review anyway. That would
And this
include
would be.
according to their attorney, this would be.
And plus, the Concom has already weighed in and approved.
The Conservation Commission's already reviewed the project as they're supposed to and approved the project. And the Board of Health has already met with the superintendent and discussed it over the summer, and they don't have any regulations to talk about this, so there's nothing for them to,
There's nothing for them to weigh in on, really.
Do we have a copy of the application? Have you guys read it, or, I'm just curious
The
how it reads.
stormwater management plan?
No, the application from the schools. to
the
planning
application's
board.
for, the application, it's a stormwater management plan. It's,
So there's a write-up behind it, I'm just curious what it looks like, I haven't seen it.
so,
I mean, I guess it's just standard, the drainage of the site. I mean, it's
an
it's how they
engineering
manage
report.
the water when
Now,
it
they-
rains and
the
et
sc-
cetera.
The school did go at length to talk about, you know, the issue of PFAS, because they knew it was gonna be an issue in the community. They'd already heard from people in the community. They did have Gale Associates, their consultant, address it in the documents to answer questions, not to invite
Got it.
more review.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it, it doesn't seem like it's in the purview of a planning board. It's just an important topic, though, that's all I'm bringing up.
Right, but it's, yes, it's an important topic. It's unfortunately, we're in a space right now where the current law hasn't caught up to its place in the public discussion. So it's become an issue. The issue of PFAS has become an issue in public discussion, but state and federal law have not caught up to that area yet. There's no regulations about how much PFAS is acceptable or not acceptable. There's really
So
nothing
even with
for
a
us to hang.
study, I don't know if there's a basis
Even with a
behind it.
toxicology study, because they want to test all the materials, it's going to tell us stuff, but it's
All right,
it's
already known.
it's just going to tell us stuff, you know?
Okay.
And as we know with PFAS, it's literally, it's in my glasses here, it's in the pen, it's in this, you know, it's in everything that's
Anybody who cooks at home with a Teflon pan cooks with PFAS every time they
Yep.
cook.
your rain jacket, you know, whatever, all those forever.
And didn't the school say they were using certain materials that are,
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of previous health concerns have about, not just PFAS, but other carcinogens have come from the crumb rubber. They're not planning to use the crumb rubber. There is likely still the possibility that there would be some PFAS in the carpet itself, but I believe they've talked about monitoring wells and stuff to try to keep track of that. And like I said, there's currently no, there's not really any state or federal law for us to hang our hat on to say no to.
Can they dictate materials when they go out for their RFP, or can they say, this is what we want you to use?
I think that they're limited by what the industry actually produces right now. Everything that is
Right.
produced is made out of plastic.
Yeah, no, I get the plastic piece, and that's gonna be on the grass blade itself, right? But it's the filling
You're
that
talking
I'm
about the
thinking
underlay-
about, that gets
underlayer.
in.
Yeah, I believe they're looking at one, there's a couple different natural
Yeah, there's a couple
infill.
options.
Yeah, he had mentioned, I
Yeah.
thought pine needles or something, I forget.
Pine needles is
Doing-
one, I know of a town that
There's
used
there's like
coconut husks.
Coconut husks.
Yep, and they said, and that's the intent, correct?
Right.
That's what was said
That's
when it
what
was voted on, okay.
Right.
All right,
Right, that was the intent, to use a secondary material other than the crumb rubber. Because I think we all know there's issues with that crumb rubber.
yep.
And it's, I will say, as a person that has played on many turf fields, crumb rubber is, it's terrible, because it gets in your
Oh,
shoes,
no,
it gets,
now you
it gets,
lost me.
just gets everywhere.
I'm good.
All right, so,
Do you want to vote from the board?
anybody want to make a motion to accept the letter as written? And we'll,
Did Bill say he was good, or?
Bill, do you have anything else to add? Sorry, I didn't.
No, I was good with it.
All right. Then a motion to approve our letter from myself.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All those in favor?
Bill Wilson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Bill Olson, aye.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for putting that together.
Discussion, our next topic, a discussion about school site presentation from Cutler School Building Committee. We have discussion of the lease, timeline for decision-making, and evaluating commercial viability of whichever site is vacated.
Trying to find the letter from the superintendent. Not it? Okay. Sorry, I know I got the letter today, but I don't know why it's not.
Is it the, no, that's not else. I just saw it in my email here.
Yeah, I forwarded it to you earlier today, after I got it from Janelle Powers, School District. There we go,
There's district agreement.
there we go. That's the one right there. Now, I just need to share the screen. There you go. Is that readable for folks at home?
Yep.
Increase it a little bit. Can you see that, Sean?
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see
Add
it.
it up a little.
Yes, can you scroll up again?
Perfect.
So,
All right, so, discussion of lease. So, Mr. Tracy, our superintendent's looking for a possibility of a 50-year lease for either Cutler or Winthrop school site. I'm fine with either one of those as long as we're putting a new school on it. I guess my question to the folks on the board that are here are, do you want to kind of hedge our bets a little bit on the site and somehow word it that whatever site is chosen for the new school building, and it passes town meeting, that we extend a 50-year lease for that site once it's chosen? Or do we want to pick a site to extend a lease, or do we want to extend both of them? I think we know that we're getting this, well, we don't know, but we're hoping that we get a new school. I don't want to put my cart before the horse here. Thoughts? And I guess while you're thinking of something to ask Bill and Bill, Joe, do you know timeline on this? This is just basically town meeting, right? Because we got a 50-year lease, so it's got to go to town meeting because it's
Yeah,
over a standard
The
3-year.
the lease itself will have, the lease itself will eventually have to go to town meeting. I think that there is a deadline for the school building committee to make a recommendation on a preferred option in April, at the end of April. So at some point, the board here would have to make a decision as to, kind of guiding them in a
Yeah.
direction of, which site you want, or you choose to make a statement and send a letter to the MSBA that the Hamilton Select Board will work to extend a 50-year lease to whichever option is chosen by
Yeah.
the school building committee.
And I would say from my personal opinion, not to sway anybody, but I would extend the Cutler lease because we're looking at the Cutler school building project, not the Winthrop School Building Project. And through the research I've done through the school building committee, I feel that the Cutler site is a better site, even though I'd like it much better if it was in Wenham somewhere, Iron Rail or something like that. But I would be fine with extending the lease at the Cutler site for 50 years. But I'm open for whatever thoughts everybody else has.
Control a site, how is that defined? I mean, is 50
You give
years?
them a 50-year ground lease.
Is that like,
You have
is
control.
that somebody came up with that?
Yeah, that's what they have now. They have a ground lease, but they're expiring.
Right, no, I understand, but like, what makes it, they need control.
They need
Someone
control
said
of the site,
50 years
yeah.
means control, is that like a?
It needs to be controlled for the life of the project.
Yeah,
And
so
the
the-
expected life of the school would be 50 years.
So the state wants a 50-year lease, basically.
So
We've
that-
done
we
20-year
know that
leases in
number
the
works.
past, and that number 50 is what the state's wanting because they're going to be investing X into our project. It's going to last 50 years plus, hopefully, so. And I think that's why we've got the 50-year on it instead of the standard kind of 20 that we've done in the past. And then a handful of
Right.
years ago, we got it down to 10 years because we're hoping to push this issue.
So should we take the opportunity and look at the agreement while we're doing this? This is a long time.
So I did, anticipating that you were going to want to have that discussion, I did make sure you all had a copy
Thank you.
of the
The school,
And I did read
school
it,
district agreement today. So,
and it does say, you know, we can't extend more than 20 years, but that's why it would have to go to town meeting, correct?
right.
What, the things I look at when I look at an agreement, it's in better shape than I thought I was gonna see, but the things like the capital allocation piece, is there anything we would want to discuss? This is the biggest capital expense we'll ever have on our school properties, and we have an opportunity to look at the appropriation process or allocation process.
well, so it's been a few years now, but we had originally, this select board had asked to reopen the district agreement about 3 years ago now. And they requested it because the terms of the agreement require all three parties to agree to reopen the agreement, and so that request was sent to the district with a copy to Wenham, and Wenham chose not to second that motion, so it never really materialized.
That was 3 years ago, right,
3 years
before
ago.
this discussion? Did they,
So-
why did Hamilton want to open it? Was there
There are a
anything
number of-
specific?
I wanted to open it again because there's a lot of discrepancy there. There's,
It's an old document, I mean.
And
It's
there's
an
a lot
old
of
document.
vagueness and.
Even how it reads, I mean, it's like, it still lists originally, then it lists them, and we could collapse it up and clean it up.
and we've both, and since we've, now Wenham is to a 5-person board, you know, their
Previously,
government
something like-
structure has
yeah.
changed as well.
They may want to change it too.
So that may be another reason for them to hopefully agree to open it. I would be willing to push them again.
Or at least ask if they'd be in
It's
favor. I
office.
mean, 3 years ago, we were talking about a new school and $100 million.
So I would say, you know, at the risk of sounding like, you know, the Machiavellian in the room, you have a pressure point right now where they need something. They need you to be willing to negotiate a 50-year lease. This would be the right time to say, we're willing to negotiate a 50-year lease, but we need to reopen the agreement and fix some of the stuff that's in there.
I think it makes sense to me. I mean, it's an opportunity, it may open and close like a warrant article, who
Yeah,
knows?
I mean,
But I think we owe it to the community to take a look at it, and
I mean, the district runs 4 campuses, 3 of them are in Hamilton. And they're all 3 are larger than the one in Wenham.
right, that's a good discussion to have.
The town of Hamilton handles a disproportionate share of that.
Tax burden.
That burden.
Yes.
And I think it would be getting the Wenham board to say yes to, because we need a yes from all 3 entities to open the agreement.
I would like to ask them. I mean, I don't know if that's a manager to a town administrator discussion, or what's the willingness, but
I can mention it to the town administrator there, but.
When's our next leadership meeting with them, with Eric and
Oh, it's
Wenham?
coming up.
Coming up, right? When-
Wednesday.
There you go. Thank you, John.
Is it Wednesday, John?
is that just
Yeah.
the chairs,
Thank you
right?
for reminding me.
Yeah.
It's the 5 chairs meeting, right?
Yeah, it's 5 chairs.
So yeah, why don't John don't let me forget
Yep.
to bring this up and test the water. And I'm fine with tonight if you want more time, Bill Wilson, to kind of look at the agreement and leverage this a little bit more. We're not in a rush to do it today.
Well,
But I think if we package it a little bit, like you said, with opening the school agreement, I'm fine with that too. Or we can talk about picking a site and et cetera. I mean, there's a lot of different options, I guess.
Yeah, no, on that part of it too. I mean, I definitely would recommend the same, as you just said. I mean, but also this is supposed to be a fair public process that they're choosing, so we're kind of tilting right, wrong, or indifferent, where,
Well, the only two sites they're looking at are in your community,
right,
Right.
at a what?
are in your community.
No, I know, but he's saying call out Cutler only.
Well, if you wanted to do that, yeah, I mean, there's lots, you could call out either site as the one, you know, without getting too much into it, because the data's gonna be recalculated, I think. The school building committee earlier tonight looked at the responses, so every member of the school building committee was tasked with completing an evaluation of the 15 sites based against
Is the
15 to 20
final,
criteria earlier, and we reviewed those today. The five sites, the five options out of the 15 that had the highest scores were 4 new build options on the Cutler School site and
Yep.
1 of the new build on
the
the Winthrop.
Winthrop.
Now,
So they're all new build at this point.
well,
Right.
those are the 5 options that did the best under the evaluation system. We're not gonna publicize all of that information quite yet, because there was some, we'll call it a glitch with some of the data, and they're gonna try to address that before we get back, but before we make that public. But it showed pretty clearly that those 5 options were better than all the others.
yeah, because I think with the new build, the best-case scenario was it didn't disturb the kids on those school sites until that building was done. They switched over to the new building, and then you raised the old building. You know, with as a remodel in place, you had to shift students in classrooms and et cetera, and it could be phased and construction
costly,
costs, and
yeah.
you're
It's gonna stretch out the-
redoing some things and, you know,
So money and time.
money and time.
Makes sense. And Sean, to your initial point, I don't think it's a bad idea that probably we should make a recommendation on Cutler if, you know, we back it up and say, you know, our best way as a community to offset some of that increase in
how does
spend is, you know,
Have an
via
option
the
to be
Winthrop
able-
property, right? Because it's downtown, it's,
Right.
put-
Forgive my
that's probably our responsibility to communicate, you know, to work
Forgive
through
my
that.
naivete, but who has the final say in the site? Is it a joint decision, or is it our decision? Is it school building committee? How does that,
So from a perspective of the lease, it's the town of Hamilton.
it's the lease, right? We own the lease,
You
or
own
we
it.
give the
And
lease,
select
so
board
it's
is
us.
the select board is the executive authority for the town, so you'll make the recommendation, and whatever recommendation you make is gonna have to be supported by town meeting.
Right.
You know, there is, you know,
Ultimately, it comes down to the lease and where we choose to give the lease.
Right. Yeah, you guys actually have control
Right,
of where the school gets built. That's the bottom line.
yeah. So I guess to the bills, do we have enough information, you think, to choose one of the sites at the moment? Or do you want to get ahead of ourselves and make a political statement by choosing one?
I think we got to keep it open dialogue for now until we move that data.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think you could respond to the letter that's up saying, absolutely, we welcome
I agree.
the discussion, and also as part of the discussion, keep in mind, we're going to open up the entire agreement, so be prepared to talk about both. I think I would,
Yeah, I think
Set
that's a
the
great
stage
idea.
now.
We respond to the letter for the request and say, yep, we understand this is coming up. We need some more information before we make a site recommendation, and when we do, we will choose a lease at that site, in addition to our ask to open the school regional agreement. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
All right?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I mean, say something proactive about it. We want to remain proactive so we don't become an obstacle, right? So it's going to be up to them to keep us informed so we don't ever get in a situation where we get behind.
Yeah. All right, so then,
I take it you want to designate the town manager to draft a letter?
yeah, I was just gonna say, I'd designate Joe to draft a letter, and then I'll look at it.
And in parallel, should we ask him to reach out to the town administrator of Wenham and solicit interest, or do we just let that follow suit?
Is he gonna be at the meeting on Wednesday?
Should be.
Yep.
Should be.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll bring it up Wednesday,
Okay.
and I'll test the water then.
All right.
All right, and then we had the timeline for decision-making.
I mean,
We've kind of talked about that.
We've kind of talked about that, yeah.
Evaluating commercial viability of whichever site is vacated.
Yeah, how do we do that? That's exactly what we need to do.
So, I mean, I think all the attention's been on Winthrop, which I think as it should be, but, I mean, there's potential in Cutler, but I think it's just residential for, I mean, we could
so
look at the assessor's
Yeah,
office and ask kind of comps.
There'd be some, commercial liability is an interesting term. Quite frankly, I don't think you have a lot of commercial viability in either site.
I agree.
Both sites are likely to be redeveloped in some kind of housing, or in the case of the Winthrop, maybe potentially mixed use, but certainly not a large commercial-only site. Cutler is almost assured to be just residential use. Now, that, they both have benefit to the town. If the town were to get access to them again and make one of them for sale, the town would make money. But under those terms, you have to spend that money on a capital asset. You can't spend it in the general operating budget. So there's some limited positive for the town to get one of those two sites back. I don't think it's really worth assessing the commercial viability, except to understand what we might get
Tax revenue.
in terms of tax revenue by whatever's created there. And that would depend on what we do, as far as you do an overlay district to allow for more than what 1A zoning allows, or,
Yeah, I guess I would want to see some ballpark assumption from the assessor's office for residential at Cutler and a mixed use at Winthrop site. Because most likely that would be the overlay that we put in there for the form-based, and 3A would be mixed use.
Who would do that, Sean? You said the assessor's office. I mean, the FinCom has been doing some modeling, but
I guess I would ask Todd.
Todd Laramie, the chief assessor, would be able to say, okay, there's this many, there's this many
could look at the
acres.
size
We could
and-
create this number of lots, and the lots would go for this, generating this amount of tax.
Yeah.
revenue.
That'd be great.
because we've already done some of that work. I mean, we already got a sort of a sale price of $6.5 million for the property, and then we've done some modeling, but we're over our skis on that, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a good point too, John, is that kind of base price, if we did just sell the land for a Winthrop site, what's the assessment of it? I mean, I'm sure it's low because it's got a school on it right now. But
Yeah,
we
I mean,
We could
I mean,
surmise if it
the
didn't have
modeling we
over
did
in a school, et
says-
cetera, what it would be.
Yeah, it's anywhere from $500,000 annually to $1 million annually of tax revenue, depending on how dense it is, so.
Right,
But again, we have no idea.
right.
Would Cutler be in the overlay district for 3A or not?
No.
It would not.
No,
No.
That's an
No.
interesting
It's
discussion,
about,
too.
it's almost 2 miles from the train station.
So
Yeah.
if you don't want 200, just gonna say it, right? If you don't want 200 houses potentially at Winthrop, does it make sense to have a school at Winthrop? And or does form-based say,
Because I think the form-based approach will help us limit that kind of impact.
Yeah, but you
But I will say to.
you wouldn't put 200 units in there, right?
no, you wouldn't, but it.
Wouldn't, but they could.
They could. 15 acres, 15 units per acre.
Really? So that's kind of like 59 Willow.
It's 15 acres per acre across the entire acreage of the thing, and then you can locate it in a certain percentage of. the
Yeah, and service, I mean-
Pockets, so.
Yeah, just to my earlier point, I mean, we don't know what we don't know, and I do think it needs to be controlled. Form-based will help control that.
But
Having a school there eliminates
Right,
that.
right. But when you just talk about number of units per acre, the Willow Flats project is about an acre, and it's 18 units. So there's 18 units in 1 acre, right there.
Right.
Yeah, I was
That's
thinking.
what you're talking about.
The
I mean,
model, the straw man model we're using is 300 Willow, which are those condos
Right.
Yeah,
down the other
yeah,
end of
yeah.
the street.
Yeah.
So you put 5 of those in there, and you got $500,000 a year in revenue.
Right, yeah, that's pretty good assumption.
So, anyway,
Yeah,
I can
maybe-
share that
maybe
with you
FinCom
after the
could share
FinCom
that
goes
with
over.
the assessor's office and come back with something that's
Yeah,
aligned.
All right. That sounds good to
Okay.
me. All right, new business. Update on Chabaco Road development. Joe?
Well, so we just put this in here to kind of highlight what you got from KP Law regarding 40B and LIPS, and so that's a little bit of a quick primer for the Select Board. We can share that with the FinCom, and we will share it with the Planning Board as well. And we've talked to KP Law about providing some kind of a small seminar, an hour, hour and a half, to make all the boards aware of kind of what the process is for 40B. The owner of the, developer owner of that site, 133 Essex, has agreed, so the town, through our attorneys, asked the court to stay the lawsuit. They sued us over not getting the special permit. That has been stayed in court while we wait to see if they pursue the 40B. We have not yet received a 40B application, and to my knowledge, at this point, as we speak right now today, the state hasn't given them a Pell, but we are anticipating that it could happen anytime. It could happen tomorrow, could have happened today, and I just don't know about it yet. Their application for a Pell is in. We've commented. The state is on the clock to answer. Our attorneys don't see any reason they wouldn't be provided the Pell. And then from the day they get the Pell, they have 2 years to apply for a 40B permit, which the ZBA would have to hear. The ZBA is the only review authority in the town under a 40B application, although if the town chose to take the approach of doing a friendly 40B, the Select Board could work with the developer on getting some some things included in the project that would make the project more palatable to the community. So there's an opportunity for a friendly 40B there. Did that cover everything that we were?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Okay. Does the state have a period of time that they would award a Pell? Does that run out, or that could be any time?
Yeah, I feel like I want to say it was 60 days. We were actually expecting them to issue it before Christmas, but I don't think the clock's run out on them yet.
Okay.
And the state has been backed up with everything these days, so.
Yeah, I think it's typically like 60 days. but
60.
It kind of, I don't think there's a set hard time.
Okay.
One other thing, just since we're talking about affordable housing, on the 17th at the Cabot on Wednesday, I'm participating in a panel discussion on affordable housing. What is it? Who needs it? How does it affect us all? It's myself and a handful of other panelists talking about 40B and et cetera. So if you're interested, go to the Cabot
In Beverly.
in Beverly and look at their website, and you can register to come.
Are tickets on sale now, or?
I think it's free. You just have to register for it. $0.
You don't think they could sell tickets to that kind of discussion?
I mean, I'm there, so you know.
That's why I buy it.
Okay, so next up, last new business here is appoint a subcommittee to begin negotiations with our town manager on his contract. Seeing as how there's 2 other select persons here, and their names are both Bill, what sounds like, paying the bills. Would either of you gentlemen be willing to be on a subcommittee to begin negotiations with Joe?
I would.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we should start. Whether or not we should give the other 2 an option as well, I'm happy to help, or be whatever.
Let's say, unless the other 2 would chime in, I'll reach out to them after the meeting, but if no one else stands up, if you 2 wouldn't mind starting it, that'd be great.
All right, Bill, I've already put it together, Joe.
All right, is there any other new business? Sidewalks, Bill Olson?
We started on that today.
Let's start talking about sidewalks.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I think maybe the only other new business that I would add was the topic earlier about the stabilization fund.
Yep.
To make sure we figure out that and talking to FinCom with kind of options. And then the other thing was.
Field stabilization fund.
Yeah, field stabilization fund, sorry.
Yep.
And with the information from the assessor's office and mashing that together with the FinCom's numbers and seeing where we're at with commercial, I don't want to say commercial viability, but tax income viability from Winthrop/Cutler sites. And maybe just an update on that, and that will help us in our decision-making.
Okay.
I think something to think about for all of us, if we do open the agreement, we should be thinking about what we would like to see changed, if anything. I'm not saying we definitely would, but.
So the letter included a handful of things a couple years ago, so
If you
I'll
could dig up
I'll dig
that,
up the letter.
a letter and circulate it
Circulate
again,
it to the
because
full-
we've got
full
a
board,
few
yep.
new people. The waging classification.
Oh, yeah, good call.
Yeah.
As well, with the unions, for the salary
Oh,
step
right.
increase stuff. And then I'm gonna throw one more that's kind of semi-related, but not, is Wendy's doing a great job of getting up to speed. I'd like to tackle a few more of those financial policies.
It's interesting that you say that. We're planning to bring one to you at the next meeting.
Love it. We can't vote on it.
We're
Oh,
actually
my
gonna,
God,
we're actually gonna,
Yes.
No, that was a joke.
yeah. It's gonna be before the FinCom this week, and it should, we hope will come to you with a recommendation. But it's,
Which one
something-
is it?
It's about debt management.
Okay,
Because,
yeah.
because we got that bond rating
Yeah.
thing, and the bond rating agency is asking about it, so.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
good.
perfect timing then. All right,
Do we have any other department heads to come in, or are we on schedule for updates?
Well, the meeting of the 22nd will be primarily, the agenda for that one might be pretty straightforward, because you gotta agree to go out to bond for the town hall. And so the Lock Lord and those folks will be in here to have us do
talk
the
about it,
bond. And then you're gonna do the budget presentation that night, budget and capital presentation that
Okay.
night. So, we probably, all the department heads will be here, we probably won't let any of them speak about updates, we'll just stick to budgets and things like that. And then we'll start hitting, we generally try to have a department head update at least one every month, and we'll get back to that in
Yeah,
February.
Those are
could
great.
I get, I know the last handful of years, in essence, is saving the earth a little bit. We haven't printed out our munis budget report stuff. Could I get one though before the meeting?
Budget?
I like to go through it. It's tougher for me to do it on the computer. I like
Yep.
to highlight and write stuff in the margins and stuff like that.
Used to get, yeah, that's the binder.
Yep, the binder.
We're still working it by town meeting, you're gonna have the new budget
New
document.
budget, awesome. All right, unless there's any other new business, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn,
All right,
8:43.
all those in favor say aye.
Bill Wilson, aye.
Sean Farrell, aye.
Aye.
And Bill Olson seconded for the minutes.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Bill. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John, for coming.
Thank you.
Okay,
anybody else
gang.
watching this.
Hey, Bill.
Hang in there.
Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks.